How is everybody? You doing well? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hanging in there. Or hanging on. I haven't decided quite yet.
Not really. Somebody put
The
it.
internet has definitely been spotty all day with all the classes. So it's
Oh,
definitely
really?
hanging in there.
Oh dear. It's a pain. I guess all the internet providers are doing well at this time of year because of all this. So let's see who's here. Ariana, yes. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I have to turn my camera off because of the internet being spotty out here.
Okay. Talia is not going to be here. 9:22. Oh my gosh. Taryn, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Good. Paul is here in the room. Reagan?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Joe?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. The Destiny?
I'm here.
Yep. Raguna? Dana?
Yes, ma'am.
Abby? Not yet. Veronica, I saw you. Brenda, with a B-E, I see you. Deasia, yes. Liz, yes. Whitney Reed, I think she might be. And Alyssa, good. Oh, I like your light fixture, Joe, or whatever it is. Is that light?
It's just a piece of art on the wall.
Oh, mid-century modern, it looks like.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So I want to sort of start at the end and kind of work backward. The end is for Thursday, we're going to have group conferences. And so we're all going to be online, and I'm going to divide you up into these Zoom meeting rooms. And I will tell you what to do then, but basically you're going to be sharing your letters with each other and helping each other figure out how to make them better. And so we will not meet in this room. Next week, we will not have individual classes. We will actually have one-on-one individual meetings with me, also about the paper. The plan is that you have a rough draft that you share with the group on Thursday. You get feedback, you revise and work on it based on what they've said. And then you meet with me sometime next week, and I will be setting up a schedule thing once I figure out the schedule, and having you sign up for times that are convenient for you. And they'll be I'll probably make 30-minute conferences with a 15-minute in between. So just to kind of let you know where we are on that. So put a big note in your planners that Thursday's class will be group conferences, And next week, which will be the 29th and the 1st, we won't actually have class. We'll have individual conferences instead, one-on-one. Any questions on that?
The rough drafts, are they for both letters?
Yes. So next step back is I want you to write these letters on a Google draft, on a Google document, excuse me. And it is probably better if you start with a Google document rather than start with a Word document and change to Google document, just because it's less likely to get confused as to where it is and what you're doing with it. And I want to remind you about how to do Google Docs. So you find Google Docs and Google Drive in your UALR email. You go to the tic-tac-toe at the top right. And up in the top is the calendar. Oh, no, I don't know what made me say calendar. Up in the top, underneath the calendar is the Google Drive, and next to it is the Google Doc. And if you click on Google Drive, you should see this folder that I had you create for this class. If you want to create a Google Doc, you click on the Google Doc. And you do have options if you want. You can just start with a blank one, which is kind of what I would recommend. But you can use these templates that they have. Just be sure if you're using a template that it's appropriate for this particular situation. So if you look here, they have a whole variety of templates under letters. And they call them business letter, informal letter, letter spearmint, and letter Swiss. So what happens when you use these templates is it creates this format for you and you don't even have to worry about it. But if your letter is in a business context, which it almost certainly is, you know, picking this particular one is not such a great idea. Additionally, if you pick a format, make sure that you actually fill in all the empty blanks. So don't leave Ronnie Reeder CEO company name and your name 123 on the template. And don't leave the date that they've got there. You notice here that in the text they have Latin. Actually, it's just meaningless Latin words stuck together. And that's kind of what they do as a design tool. You know, if they're designing something, they just put in text so you can see it. Another thing, be sure if you're using a template, is you'll notice that it has a font that's selected. So this one has Proxima New, whatever that is. And don't mix up fonts. So if you like that font, keep with it, but make sure you've stayed with that font throughout. Don't cut and paste something else in there with a different font. So be wise as you're using these tools that they give you. But you can also, to avoid getting into trouble, you can also just open up a blank document. And then you want to title your document. And how do I want it titled?
Last name first, right?
Last name first. That's the most important thing. And then you should give some kind of indication of this, the topic and the, like the version number. And that's as much for you as for me, because that way you keep track of what you've got. And then oops. All set up. Notice as soon as I type in the name of this document, there was a little text that came across after it, and it said it was saving it. And so it is saving it into the drive. Now, I've lost my mouse. There it is. Then what you want to do is move it to where you want it to be. So it will save it into my drive. And as I've shown you before, I have 1,010 folders, but I've created a folder for this class. So I want to move it into this class and I'll move it there. And there's this little blue thing tells me that it's been moved to this other thing. If I made a mistake, I can undo, and then I can dismiss so I can get rid of the little sign. And there, you know, they have a system. You can share it there. So you type and type, and remember with Google Docs, unlike other software, it saves automatically. And you can always look back and see what you wrote before by going to File and the version history. And so I could name the current version. I could call this, you know, first draft. And then the next time I look at it, there's 6 more versions, you know, I can name them if I want, or I can just go back to earlier versions. You know, we are always writing text and then we think, oh no, that's not good. Oh no, maybe I'll keep it. So you can go back and restore. So I want you to create the letters on Google Docs, and then I want you to share it. So the sharing command is up in that top right. All the Google Doc commands are generally blue. And what I want you to do is to share it with me. If you are in your ULR system, you type it, start typing my name, and it comes up automatically. Now, this time it's coming up my other, and here we see. So all right. And make sure you share it with the right person. So this is saying that I've shared it with JL Matson. There are 3 types of access in a Google Doc. One is viewer, one is commenter, one is editor. For this review process, it should be either commenter or editor. An editor can actually change the text. A commenter can add comments to it. A viewer can't do anything to it, can't even download it. And you can send me a notice with it and tell me that you've sent it. And then I'm going to be creating groups. So I do this. Here is my letter. You are, oh, I don't want to share it with that anyway. I don't want to share it with that one. I want to share it with J.L. Metzen at UALR. So I click send. And this is what happens in my email. This is what I got. Invitation to edit of this Mattson Letters complaint. And then I will click on it in the email, open docs, and here's the letter I wrote, which is just letters. Questions? Okay, so for
So
Thursday.
you want us to show this? Sorry. So you want us to share this on before next class? Is that correct?
Yes.
With you, both of us?
Yes, I would like you to share them with me before next class, preferably by Wednesday night at 11:59, so that I have time to take a look at them and put you all into groups before class. I will definitely accept them after, but preferably by 11:50, by Wednesday night, so I have some time to deal with them. Now, what I'm going to do is put you into groups of 3 or 4 and share it with you. And you will be put into the Zoom breakout rooms. And I'll give you instructions on Thursday about what to do during the conference.
I have a
Okay.
question.
So going backwards. By the way, people were saying that you couldn't see if I was sharing something, everything got so small. On most computers, you can reduce the size of the Zoom, whatever's being shared. And see the pictures bigger. LaDestiny, did you have something to say?
Yes. On the letter, do you want us to put our real address and number or make one up?
It just depends. That's up to you.
Okay.
If you're going to really send it, you may want to have the privacy of not disclosing your address to all of us. It's totally up to you. Good question. So, see if I can find this spot. Where is the picture? Is it lower?
Is it okay instead of creating two separate Google documents if we put both of the letters in one?
It's more than okay. That's what I prefer. One document, two letters. Can you see my Google Doc?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So with Google, it's pretty similar to Word. You use the insert menu to insert a break. So when you have a new letter that's starting, you click that, insert. So I inserted a break between this. So you don't have to do carriage returns to try to get it at the right spot. You just insert a page break.
Control Enter will also do it.
Pardon?
Control Enter will also do it.
Yeah. Control what?
Control and Enter.
Oh, Control Enter. Yeah, they always have shortcuts, which I ignore. Later we might talk about section breaks, but okay. So one other thing to sort of go back. I said that you could use a template if you want, but you should understand basic formatting for business letters. And I assume most of you have learned about that in earlier times in your college careers. But on week 5, I did do the instructions, did a link to the instructions for the Purdue Online Writing Lab that, and ignore these ads in there, that explain all the pieces of a business letter. And it shows you some of the, it shows you all the way to how many spaces you do between each section. And notice that letters are typed single space, but with double space between the paragraphs. Unlike college papers that are usually double spaced with an indented paragraph to signal it. And it tells you how many lines you need to do between the sincerely and your last name and closures and all that stuff. This is a block justification. The whole letter is left justified so that each paragraph is a block. This one gives a modified block with the date in the center. This one is an indented block. So each new paragraph starts with an indent. Everything else is the same. So there are a few little varieties you can do, and you can create your own address line, make it you can make it your own stationery if you want to. And luckily we all have word processing these days, so we can do that. Okay. Questions, just about the logistics. So you're going to write 2 letters. You're going to have a draft on one document. It's going to be a Google document that you will share with me before class on Thursday. Then class on Thursday will be given over to having group conferences, and I'll be giving you instructions for how to do that. General questions about the logistics.
And this is something we're not going to be uploading to Blackboard, is that correct?
Not yet. We're going to be working on it. But, all right, so here's your Blackboard. So here's the Blackboard unit. There's an overview. Connects to the material in the course site. Here's the Thursday recording. Here's pair of letters, final version for grading, which is due Tuesday, October 6th. And that's the one you upload to Blackboard. So you're going to be working on it for the next week and a half. And you're going to get feedback from each other and feedback from me. And hopefully all that feedback is going to lead to a lot of revision and editing. And then you submit it to Blackboard for a grade. Now I will give you, some grades for just turning them in and doing the assignment, but that's just sort of process grade. Okay? Everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay. So, good job, everybody, using the discussion tool in Blackboard. Does it help to see what other people are doing to kind of give you more ideas about what you should do and vice versa?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Brian. So the material on the website, it's basically two groups of things. It's interesting. Two groups of things. I don't know why yours is. Oh well. From this prose right. All right, now how do I get this? Ah, there it is. All right, there's material from Prose Right, there's Dr. Kim Campbell, and there are both videos and text things from her blog. And then there's this material from a book called The Truth About Business Writing. And both of these it looks like a lot of different things, but actually each of these is very short and kind of focused on a given point. We don't have time to talk about all of them, but I strongly encourage you to look at them all for both week 4 and week 5. And week 5 is now available to see. So both of them talk about the bottom line. And they also talk about planning. And basically the truth about passages. Each of her chapters, I guess, were they're like 2 or 3 pages each chapter, and it would be truth 1, truth 2. I think there are 20 something truths. Basically, her big thing is just figure out what the various purposes are, jot it down, use some kind of very rough, loose outline, and you'll find that your writing is practically writes itself. Now, will all depend on whether it really writes itself, but I think I would say that it is true that if you plan it ahead and you kind of jot down what the main things are that you want to do, then you're going to have an easier time. So one of the things I asked you to look at was this idea of the sensitivity of the message. So that if it's really, really bad news, maybe you don't want to say it up front. Maybe you might want to delay it if it's going to be highly sensitive to the author, to the audience. I think also, in addition to thinking about sensitivity, it's really important to think about knowledge and what they need to know in order to hear whatever it is that you're trying to say. Some of that has to do with the sensitivity of it, so that if you're, having to cut something out in a business, if you can provide some kind of rational reasoning process ahead of time, that might make them a little bit more willing to hear this bad news. But a lot of times it also has to do with their knowledge about something. So I had this problem just today again. ULR apparently is, they're concerned there's some kind of audit for security purposes that apparently the Board of Trustees is having ULR do. And so suddenly at some point last year, ULR, all of our ULR computers stopped being able to download any new applications, even the Google Drive application or the printer application, so you can make your desktop print to something. And actually, they didn't even tell us this, it just happened. And so it all seemed like, just frustrating, because suddenly we had to have this passwords and you couldn't get a password and whatever. But this is a typical thing that happens in large organizations. If somebody makes a decision, nobody tells them. This is a bad news piece of thing. If somebody had thought about sending an email, they might have said, you will no longer be able to download apps to your desktops. And that kind of bad news is one of those things that probably needs to be delayed, both because of the sensitivity of it and because of the knowledge that we don't have to even understand why they're doing this. I was thinking about this because of the topics that Paul had.
I sent out that letter too.
What?
I sent out that letter too.
Right. And so everybody's like, huh? What are we supposed to do? And so part of talking to somebody about this is explaining the reason why But part of talking about to somebody about this is also answering questions about what they're going to do instead. So I was thinking, Paul had a new topic, has a topic that he wanted to send a letter to. It was a good news version and a bad news. So the good news was you will now have documents mirrored on the storage server. Documents from your My Documents folder mirrored on the storage folder. And he'd like to just send that out. So if you receive a memo like that, you will now have documents mirrored on the storage server. What do you want to know? What is your response? This is to everybody in the class. If somebody sends that to you in some organization. Do you know what he's talking about?
I guess maybe who all would have access to it, his document.
Okay. So one question you'll have is about access. Yeah. Other questions? Do you guys know what he's talking about? Or I'm talking about? How many of you are tech people? Sort of. So wouldn't you want to know what that means for you? Why do you think you need to know what that means for you? We're talking, if his document is, if your own personal folder of documents is now mirrored on some larger institution-wide server, what is that going to mean?
What about privacy? I mean, what would that do to my privacy if now it's all being seen by everyone? I mean, that would kind of make me feel awkward and violated.
Okay, so this is supposedly good news. But you're also worried about negative implications. One of which might be privacy. Why is this good news? I'm asking Paul.
It backs it up.
What?
It backs it up.
It backs it up. Why is that good?
Well, hard drives melt sometimes. Sometimes we can save them. Sometimes, most of the time we can't.
Okay, so.
Backed up. Can't help you.
Okay. So backing it up on it's backing it up on an institution-wide thing, which will provide a better backup in case of loss. So did you know that was what was so wonderful about it when you just heard that there's going to be a mirroring? It sounds like the first thing people worried about was this negative implication. So what does that mean in terms of the letter? You need to explain what's the value of this. And also, if people are going to get worried about something, now, you know, who knows what it is, their concerns need to be addressed. So this is where the knowledge and sensitivity comes in. So you need to think about how much, you know, you're working, if you're a technical person in whatever field, and you're writing to other people who are not technical, in that field. I mean, it doesn't have to be IT to the rest of the institution. It could be, nurses to patients. I mean, whatever the difference in the two roles are, chances are the two roles have different storages of information. They know different things. And when you're the writer, you tend to think, because you've been spending all your time doing it, you forget that somebody else may not have enough background to interpret it. That was the case of that tax refund letter we looked at a couple of weeks ago. So they use all this terminology that is totally familiar to the writer, but not going to be familiar to very many people. And in fact, because of the word like warrant, it kind of makes them all nervous because there's this other meaning for warrant. So part of this thinking about what you need to say and including your letter has to do with what you need to explain to the audience in order for them to even see the value or negative value of what you're talking about. And then you need to not always get so hung up on how it seems to you, but also think about how it seems to them. Now, this is sometimes a different situation if you're doing it to a service representative or, like some of you are doing these complaint letters of some kind. The relationship between you and the others are different. One of the things I thought about was, okay, I already have a backup system. Does that mean I need to get rid of my other backup system or duplicate it, or, what does this mean? So again, part of what you want to do is think about what are all the questions that your audience is going to have, and you try to answer them before they have them. And you think about, what's the sort of the order. And it applies just as much in good news, positive messages as bad news. Because if people don't know enough information, they don't know the significance. And one of the things I think this might be helpful is the question, so what? And I'm going to suggest this at your group for the group conferencing. Anything in a letter, this is true for any writing. If your audience says, so what, after you've said something, then there's something that needs to be explained. There's some backup information that needed to be provided ahead of time, or there's some follow-up that needs to explain what's there. So they shouldn't be in a position of saying to you, so what? You should think about all the questions they might have ahead of time and then answer them for them. And of course, at the end, you can always leave something about questions. So his alternate was a bad news one, which was, due to rising costs, we will no longer back up individual hard drives. Now, I hear that, and my first question is going to be, so now what? So, you may need to sort of buffer it by explaining that there were rising costs, but the more important issue is, what is the implications for me in terms of backing up my work product? What's the next step? And so related to the thinking about sensitivity and knowledge is thinking about what's the next step. Okay, so I'm sharing on the screen a section from this chapter called Truth 11. And it is in the week 5 site. And this is what she suggests. As you work out your letter, think about 4 things and kind of sort of work these out on a scrap paper in your head, however it works for you, and get a good handle on those so that when you actually start writing, you kind of have a sense of what the sections are. And in fact, if you do this, you can pretty much write out, you know, when we're talking about letters, they're short, you know, there's not usually a lot in there. You usually can sort of work out an outline of each of the sections. So the example in here, another IT one. Suppose you're writing a memo to introduce your staff to a new system for reporting their work hours. If any of you are in organizations, anytime you have a new system, a new computer system, what you have is a crisis because nobody wants to take on something new. So you know that this is a sensitive issue. On the other hand, you also are a great believer in this wonderful new thing. But what they suggest is sort of a 4-part section, 4-part sort of planning document. Identify your goal. So what is the goal of this memo? Well, we're going to do this, whether they like it or not. So one purpose of this memo is to say, you know, we're going to start using this new system starting X date. But another purpose is more to do with the relationship between the parties. And you really want people to have as good a positive outlook as possible about it so that they will actually learn how to do it and then use it and begin to see its benefits. Audience, thinking about the audience. So this is a super manager type talking to staff below. So it's going to be more or less formal, but you know, you don't want to make it into this rigid kind of thing because of this attitude thing that you're trying to promote. And so, as they say, kind of make it a sort of a casual, a friendly, formal tone. And then the last section is content mapping and figuring out what are the main sections. And what she says is she needs to explain the need for the new system, announce the start date, show how it works in practical terms, mention any advantages the system might hold for the staff, make sure they understand they have no choice, offer a way for them to get answers, and mention any negative results if they don't follow the new system. Not sure I'd do that, but it would depend on their relationship. And so then she has a variety of suggestions. So what we're going to do right now, let's see what time is I'm going to ask you to follow this structure. My watch broke, so now I have only my phone for. Okay, I'd like everybody to sort of jot down Okay. I'd like you to jot down these 4 things, the goal, and it could be sort of your direct goal, but also the goal that you want to happen to the audience. It could also be a goal in terms of the relationship between you and the audience. The audience, what they know, how sensitive they're going to be to this, and what that means in terms of backgrounds and questions they might have, how they're likely to respond. What the tone, therefore, should be. And then finally, and this is sort of a big part, is sort of a content mapping. What are the 5 or 6 or 3 points that must be included? Just really briefly, and then and you can think about the order. I'm going to can you log into Zoom?
Ooh, probably.
All right, I'm going to just do random breakout rooms. There are and then I think if I put my stuff on silent, then you should be able to do it. Are you in there? Now it says 13, okay. All right. I'm going to
I know what y'all.
put on mute temporarily.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these breakout rooms, and what I'd like you to do is in these groups, talk to each other about your topic and these 4 items. Just kind of help each other brainstorm along the way. So hopefully the one that Paul ends up in, I will put mine on mute and he can actually talk, but if not, the one he could just participate by chatting. All right. And what you do is you'll be invited to join the group. Okay. So what's the biggest thing you're concerned about as you go home to write these letters? You're not concerned? You're ready to go?
At this point, I just need to write the things, and I'm sure I'll come up with some more concerns when I do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So go home, write them. When you run into problems, go read some of this supporting information that will kind of motivate you and give you some ideas if you get stuck. And know that we'll be working on it for a while, so hopefully it'll turn into really great letters by the end. I'm sure there'll be good drafts for Thursday. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No? So I will see you on Thursday, and expect sort of some instructions ahead of class in terms of what we're going to be doing, but we will meet as an overall whole, and then we'll break up into the groups. Has everybody done peer review before?
Yes.
Is it helpful or not?
Kinda if, everyone say something back.
If people
It's
actually
insightful.
are honest and willing to actually look at the documents. and
Yes,
give
because
feedback.
sometimes people don't do them.
Yeah. Well, see, these are short, so it'll be possible to do it during the time of the class. All right, have a great couple days.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.